Hello, everyone. It's Martha Novak, and you're on the show Real Talk with Martha Novak. I'm so glad to be with you today. Nothing like a good cup of tea in the morning. Bracing! I always love that first sip. I really do. We're talking about authenticity. This is a series that, quite frankly, has gone on forever because everything that I've ever lectured on is getting us to that point where we are authentic individuals, real, not trying to pretend anything, put anything on, not trying to control the situations, being good improvisationists, and realizing God's right there and being a good channel, or as good a channel as we can be in the moment, right? We're going to talk about more of this subject today because it's a vast subject. Everything that we do, everything we talk about goes to this end of authenticity. You can call true authenticity a lot of things, deeper levels of consciousness. You can call it your potential. Whatever it is, that's what we do here on this show. We're giving you opportunities to make small changes in your life that result in big changes overall. You know, we should we have the opportunity to reinvent all the time. Let's do a prayer, and then we'll go into our show and the things that we have to share with you today. And I hope all of you all are remaining safe and well out there. We are. These shows are all archived, but we are right in the height of the coronavirus thing that's going on out there. So we hope you are remaining healthy. Let's go on. All right, let's do a prayer. Dear God, who is all there is, you who are all we are, and all everything is in this world, we thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today under the banner of loving you and being the aspect of God that we are. We know you present two ways, as the absence of yourself and the fullness of yourself, and this is according to what we believe. It is our egoic child's mind that believes in lack and in absence. And it is our ascended mind, our higher self, that is more in keeping with the pure energies of love. Indeed, it is the love-based self. Our journey in this life, should we choose to accept it, is to go from one to the other. And we are grateful for the opportunity to do so, and for the opportunity to have shows like this, even in our confinement, that we may talk about these things. Dear God, we're opening now. We open ourselves to see, hear, sense, and know what you would have us do as we open to the truth that lies in your enlightenment. We now say we know nothing. We say it gladly, for it is the you through us and through all things that knows it all and is telling us what we need to know as a next step. We listen to that, dear God, and say thank you for everything. We are so grateful for it all. And so it is. Amen. All right, kiddos, here we go. So one of the things that we've talked about recently, oh my, you've got to understand coronavirus is going around, but so are allergies. So you will see me patting my nose from time to time because there's something blooming out there that makes my nose run. There you go. There's nothing to disguise, is there, when you're on a Facebook Live? We've got to understand that there are so many elements to authenticity. Authenticity isn't just approached through one avenue. It is the conglomeration of a lot of things that you put in place that result in these deeper levels of who you are. So we're talking about recently, in recent weeks, we've talked about it always, yes, but let's not be confusing. We've talked about some specific things. And one of the specific things that we mentioned last week right at the end, and we're going to go into today, is the word resiliency, and I want to put another word in there, and that's adaptability. I grew up in the theater. I acted a lot of my life. I directed, I did a lot of things. I wrote for theater. What we do in the theater is you have to be adaptable and resilient, or honestly, you're not going to make it. This is the truth. We've got to not take things personally when we get passed over at an audition. We have to always be open to learning something else, changing on the spot. I was telling someone the other day that when you're an actor and you're working in say a repertory situation, which means that you're working in the daytime, getting ready for your next show, and at nighttime you're performing in the old show, not a lot of time, right? And you're getting notes all day long. Sometimes you're getting notes on the performance you're giving, and you've got to assimilate those right away. So I'm, asking actors to do a scene in the morning, and I've given them several notes, and we run the scene again, and I expect those notes to be in there. That's what was expected of me too. You've got to be fast. You've got to put them in. When you're young and you're wanting to have those jobs and to get experience, you are particularly needing to be adaptable at that time, because there's some criteria that you need to have in place. If you play the piano, if you play the cello, if you speak a language, if you tap dance, if you don't, you better go learn how to do that and have a good accent, or how to tap, or, learn the basics quickly, because that's what they're looking for. So in my profession, it has challenged people in that profession more than life usually challenges us. In fact, life has told us that we have come out of the 50s, my generation, and in the 50s, we were still lingering with that there were things to protect us, that we worked for a business for a long time, and we were loyal to them, and they were loyal to us, right? And we had the established family, and we had the established church that we went to every Sunday, and they would look after us. Everybody would look after you. Guys, it's not like that at all. It shouldn't have been like that then, but that was the consciousness that we had at the time. Many of us, hello, Kat. Good to talk to you. Those of you that are on Blog Talk Radio, you're going to see me talking to my friends who are writing me on Facebook Live, saying good morning and asking questions and having comments. So thank you so much, darling. I'm so glad you're with us today. Oh, by the way, this is a live show today, and if you would like to call in and talk to me, I'm at that's my call-in, 347, this is yours, 347-850-1647. That's the guest call-in number. Now, you keep in mind, if you call that number, you're going to get on the air with me. So if you don't want to be on the air with me, go to my website, marthanovak.com, under radio shows, and click those buttons for either Facebook Live or Blog Talk Radio. And that will get you into the listening experience instead of the talking on the air experience. So I want to say that all of us, I think, need loosening up. I mentioned 2 times ago that we've gotten very complacent. There is a complacency to this society. Until this happened, we all thought every day was going to be the same. We counted on things being in the grocery store. We counted on people reacting the same way. We counted on everything. Guys, it's different now, and in future times, by the way, I will put this on the table. It's going to be real important. to be resilient and adaptable. Two different things. And so I found a great article on resilience, but I want you to know I'm talking about adaptability too. Let me just say this about adaptability before we go into the article. Concerning adaptability, if you have not challenged yourself to reinvent yourself throughout your life, I don't mean artificially, I mean in a deeper, real way, you know? Years ago, a woman tried to steal the business that I was in because I created something, all right? So she went off and did her own thing, and I say, fine. Because the challenge here, after being pissed off, human nature, right? The challenge here, after that, was, can I invent something better? That came out of me. Can something better, deeper, faster, and that would help more people come out of me? And indeed, you have to say yes. Why? Well, if God is all you are, and it is, God is energy, right? It's a moving energy. God is an infinite and ever-expanding set of truths always in motion. So there's a deepening that must go on if you're going to be on the road to consciousness. That's reinvention, ladies and gentlemen. That's the reinvention of deeper levels of who you are. And that's what life is about. You know, you find out you can be more loving. You can find out you can be of more value. You can find out you have better ideas. You can find out you can do all sorts of things. There are all sorts of talents that lie in deeper levels of consciousness that you don't even know you know, because you're not ready to know those things. So they might be misused or not used at all. So they lie in these deeper levels of self that, by the way, most people are afraid to get to. Why are we afraid? Oh, it's human nature. We like the familiar. That's why the coronavirus is shaking us up right now. We were complacent. We like that. We like that. But the creativity that all of us seek lies in chaos. Next week, I'm going to do a show on creativity. It's going to be a bit different because I want to tell you from a personal aspect the energy of creativity, how it works. We're going to talk some about how I work, how I read Stephen King works, how I've read other people working. And I want to hear from you about how your creativity comes out as well. It's a fascinating subject. And honestly, it's a subject that we need to entertain in our own lives right now and go with, because that's what this energy is challenging us to do. All chaos is challenging us to be more creative. Instead, we go, oh, why can't it be like it was? Oh, this is just terrible. I don't know how to act in this new realm. So we're going to talk about how to bring all that up in you and how to function beautifully and have different ideas that will see you through. Okay? Theater and film make you adaptable. It's funny because I didn't realize that, and I didn't realize what an asset it was until I was older. And I took a personality test years ago, and they said my nicest attribute was adaptability. And I went, man, hi, Jackie. So glad you're here with us today, sweetheart. I'm so glad that you're here. Thank you. Years ago, I thought adaptability, I want to be smart, I want to be kind, I want to be super intelligent, I'm not any of these things. Guys, I'm just adaptable. I like it. And I'm going to teach you how to be, okay? So, I found a great article called 13 Things Resilient People Do. I think it's a really good article. However, and this is by Kristen Meekhoff, Meekhof. What a wonderful name. And she wrote something called A Widow's Guide to Healing. Now, this is just about resilience. This is not about being a widow or a widower. This is about resilience. And I think it's honestly a very good article. As usual, with anything I find like this, I'm going to take it a little further, and I'm going to step outside what she's saying as well, because we're talking about changing our complete being from fear-based to love-based, aren't we? That goes beyond psychology. That goes beyond, it uses psychology, absolutely, doesn't it? Yeah. It uses self-help, absolutely, doesn't it? But it is its own thing, this study of consciousness, and that's why we are talking here. So, just to repeat myself slightly, to put everybody on the same page, because we had just started this article when we ended the show last week. Do know, too, that each week, whether we are lecturing on the same subject or not, I'm trying to add something each time, okay? That we haven't talked about before. So, Dr., I don't know whether she's a doctor or a Ms., so it just says Kristen Meekhoff. I'm going to call her Kristen from now on. She says that resilience is a critical factor for emotional well-being. I'm going to say that one of the reasons that resilience is a critical factor for emotional well-being is because it's an element of authenticity, ladies and gentlemen. You can't have authenticity without being resilient, because authenticity, these deep levels of who you really are beyond who you think you are, or who you think you should be, right, are there inside of you, and every time that we in any way betray that by stepping over our boundaries, by not honoring our values that you've heard me speak about, and in a lot of other ways, by our not being in that, it doesn't make us feel very good. Now, we so oftentimes don't feel good that we don't even notice these things. But when you start dissecting your marvelous being and doing this consciousness work on yourself, you start seeing really clearly, and you go, I don't feel good right. I see. I understand why I don't feel good right now. I stepped over the line right here. It wasn't honest. It wasn't true. And it wasn't who I really am. And we start seeing these moments, and in the seeing of these moments, in deeper consciousness, we can do something about it, right? Then when another moment of like kind presents itself, we go, I remember when I did that, so I'm going to do this instead. And it's a more honest and powerful experience for us. But we self-deceive all over the place. I'm there with several clients. Several clients have already done this work and are doing this work beautifully. But there are people that are still struggling. And they think they're doing so well, and they talk themselves into, and oh, this is so different. And when we start talking about it, it's the same thing. They're just full of self-deception. The self-deception keeps you alive for a long time, guys. You know, you can fantasize that, oh, you're just terrific, great, it's, you're doing so much, you're so valuable, but do you believe that really? It's going to be important that you just know who you are. And there's a nice middle ground that's not one of the extremes. The extremes always say we're queen or king of the world, or we're the bottom of a dirty bird cage. If you're in either one of those energies, we got fantasy going on. We've got the expanded and contractive self, which is all the ego experience. We don't have the transcendent experience that just talks about who you are. You do your best. You've prepared, you do the best you can, You hope it matters to somebody, but you have done what you know you need to do. There you are. And in that subtle energy that you think, if you're in the expanded self of Queen of the World, King of the World, you think it doesn't sound like much fun. Guys, it's everything. And it's where you create what you want from. It's real. And it's part of all of this, the authenticity and the resilience. And by gosh, you need the resilience to get to the authenticity. Something like the coronavirus cannot throw you. You know, if you are enormously affected by what happens around you, you don't know that you're still in charge of your life and always have been and always will be. And that's a really important thing to learn, which is one of the basic elements before you ever get to resilience and authenticity. But by gosh, that does make you resilient. So many people don't call it this, but hold on to a victim mentality. I've gotten several emails from people with attachments, of somebody that is giving a lecture on the coronavirus. And I watched some of this and I go, oh my God, they have never gotten over their victimhood. You can see it just as clearly by what people say and how they conduct themselves and how afraid they are. Ladies and gentlemen, it becomes really important to do this work. I was told, I have to say this again, and it's certainly not ego. I am trying to tell you that 20 years ago, I told my advanced class this was all coming, not the coronavirus, but this energy that is on the planet right now of expect the unexpected. Don't be thrown. Get your work done now. I say it to you again. Do it. You're going to be so much happier. And boy, in this world of incredible change, and we're just, it's been changing for a while, but it's really going to speed up from here on. You need what we're talking about right now if you're going to slide through with a grace-filled life. Nothing controls you. You just need to be reacting to it beautifully, right? You need resilience to be able to take advantage of the creativity that is in the chaos. You can't buy into the chaos. Hi, Lisa. I'm so glad that you're listening today, darling. Oh, thank you. I love all of you all too. Why do you think I'm here every Sunday? I very much am invested in your good lives. Many of you I know the names of, and some of you I don't. And you know what? I really do this because I care. There we are. So let's keep going. And thank you for caring about me too, by the way. It's very sweet. I love hearing from you. Okay, so this article, Kristen Mikoff, 13 Things Resilient People Do. Her first point is that resilient people can see the big picture. She goes on to say, while they have hawk-eye vision for the minute details, they can also see the larger landscape. And this keen vision prevents them from over-focusing on something granular. They have these actions reflect a panoramic vision with an appreciation for details. Now, this is what Kristen says, which is great. I mean, I agree with that totally. There's an exercise I want to put on the table that might help you with this if you find that you don't have the large picture. Many times if people are in ego, the large picture is fantasy. You know that fantasy is its own reward. I say that every week. So we got to bring out a fantasy and into reality. The big picture is a lovely thing to have, but it's got to be a realistic big picture. The small details are wonderful to have too. However, many times what we're doing when we are in our issues, in the throes of our issues, is we're focusing on one aspect of us, or a few aspects of us, or a few aspects of our victimhood, or a few aspects of something, and we don't see everything as a whole. And this is what consciousness does. Consciousness studies opens you to be able to see both. You know, I can certainly do that when I'm working on you all, the individuals. If I am in session with you, I'm getting a larger picture. I'm seeing where your potential is and where we need to get you to. I'm also seeing how you're focusing on things that stop you, that keep you stuck. Psychology calls that a fixation. What is it a fixation of? Energy. Energy. And wait till you hear one of Kristen's points here about resilience. It has everything to do with energy. Energy. So we've got to release those things, resolve those things, let your nervous system heal from that and move past that so that you have more energy available to you in the moment. This is how you become a powerful, conscious person, how you create the life you want, how you're not the victim of anyone anymore. You've never been, except when you were a child, and that was your perception in many cases. The time is now, kids, to do all this, right? It is. Okay, so here's the exercise I was going to tell you about. And you can do this when we get off the radio, because dead air is nobody's friend on the radio and on television. So here is what I want you to do. I want you to find an object in the room to focus on, in your room. Focus on that object, and what I want you to do is only see that object. Let everything else fade away. Only see that. And then, once you've done that, and you say, there's nothing else that exists for me except it's when I'm in my other office, I often say, I have people focus on a real cute statue of a giraffe that I have. When there's nothing in the room but that giraffe, then I want you to stop that exercise, and I want you then to see everything in the room. And I want you to see things in the room that you have not seen before. I want you to see everything. I want you to see how the ceiling, I'm as you can tell, there is paneling on my ceiling. How does that fit together? What does the paneling look like? Has everything been cut well, painted well? Look at everything. Where's the dirt in the room? You know, look at the furniture. Look at the patterns of things that you're wearing, and the upholstery of the furniture. Look at everything, and then add all that together. Then you have an exercise where you have started seeing beyond your issue, i.e. the giraffe, beyond you, i.e. the giraffe, because issues are very myopic. It's all about you, isn't it? It's all about you, or it's all about you or it's all about somebody else at the expense of you, which is still all about you because you've just made yourself a victim. It's a very self-indulgent place to be. Now, guys, I'm not fussing. We need that place. If it wasn't for our issues, our world wouldn't make sense, and our world has to make sense for us to survive as kids. All right? They are also the inception of our larger self. I always think, you've seen me talk about this exercise, which is, here is a line, draw it right across the page. Right below that line is the whole ego child's mind experience. Above that line is the higher self will. Everything that you feel in the ego child's mind experience, like you have heard me lecture on this before, there are only two things that we ever fuss about or feel bad about. It fits into these two categories. One is you don't care about me, and one is I never get what I want. Okay, even those cross the line. I never get what I want becomes I can get anything that I set my mind to. I'm a creative experience because of God being all I am, you see. You don't care about me becomes I care about myself and all others and have compassion for self and all others. That's what that changes into. If we didn't have this ego experience, we'd never grow and change and have another experience, because this is the undeveloped experience of self. And when you cross that line, you become the developed. Okay, moving right along. Another point that she makes is that resilient people remain open. I think this is really important. Resilient people, she goes on to say before I add my 2 cents, resilient people know staying open to new ideas and opportunities fosters growth. They welcome feedback and often end sentences with a sense of openness. I think that's a wonderful thing to say. I'll have more to say about it. Most people in the world say no before they say yes. Now, how do you know if you're one of those people? Watch when anybody asks you anything. I noticed this about my husband. Now, he's Austrian, and this is very cultural, believe it or not. There have been books written on this. I was given one by my sister-in-law when I married into this family, about how negative and cynical we find that culture. I'm sure that's some people's points of view. And my husband's a bit like that. Now, I'll tell you why. So I noticed for years that I'd say something. I don't know why our light is changing so much. For those of you that are watching on Facebook Live, I'm so sorry about that, but at least we're staying up, I guess. That's the good news, huh? I would say to my husband, as I do almost every night, would you like a cup of tea? Would you like a cuppa? And he says, no, every single time. Would you like some sliced cucumbers to munch on, because we're always on a diet, right? No. And then as soon as I make the cup of tea or whatever, absolutely. Sometimes he even catches himself in the moment. Would you like a cuppa? No. Yes. I want you all to watch those little moments where you say no. Because if you say no, and when we are performing in life and we are unconscious, you may never get around to saying yes. In fact, it's almost inevitable that no does not lead to yes. I need for you to say yes to everything. Now, what am I saying, asking you to say yes to? I'm saying say yes to all possibilities. And then if that does not suit you, that does not fit, that goes against your integrity or anything else, then say no. But listen, experience. Let's say yes, and then no, instead of the other way around. I see a lot of people saying no to life when they don't need to. I'm thinking of one person in particular who every time for years, now here's the interesting thing, she's not like this anymore, but for many years, every time I'd make even the slightest suggestion about doing things differently, she'd tell me 5 reasons or more why she wasn't going to do that, why she couldn't do that, why it wasn't going to work out. And she never once tried. She was wondering why in the world she wasn't sleeping, why in the world she was anxious all the time, why in the world she was depressed when she woke up in the morning, why in the world she dreaded the day. Because of this, darlings. She was not living her creativity and who she was. In fact, this was one person that years ago told me she didn't have a creative bone in her body. She was not creative. And it was really cute because this last week I said, I remember a woman that told me that she wasn't creative a number of years ago. And she said, whoa, was I wrong? She's doing great. God, yes, in all sorts of aspects of herself. And she's having a much better time. And she's sleeping. So guys, take me at my word. Say yes before you say no. It's just to the possibilities. You're not letting anything in. You're still safe. you see. We say no because I think a lot of times, with Michael, it's the culture, right? It could be cultural. Your family has a culture. If your family said no before they said yes and were not open to new experiences, but how is God going to bring you anything if you're not open to new experiences? We got to move, and we have to move with the times, and it's demanding deeper levels of being resilient. I think every word in the dictionary, every word can be used for high or low things. This is the duality of God. The duality of life and love and everything that we know about. The water we swim in. Duality, to use it for good or ill. So here I say there's a wonderful, I don't see it as an ego word. I mean, I'm not using it that way, and that's opportunism. You have a great opportunity right now to see where you can add value differently and put some good plans in place and move in that direction, since the world seems to be changing. And I'd count on it changing more. Be opportunistic, to be able to pivot. This is resilience, to be able to pivot. You see, we want you to be fluid, to be able to shift and change when you see what the tides are, and to use that kind of energy to make your lives better and the lives of other people by adding value. All right, her next point is know their blind spots. Since they're open to feedback as well as criticism, they are aware of their blind spots and they aren't fearful of them. I think that's a really important phrase that Kristen puts here. And they aren't fearful of them. Instead, they keep them in check so they can adequately prepare for various situations. I think that's extremely important, guys. But you've got to first not be afraid of them. I think that so many of us, when we grow up, judge aspects of ourselves. I know I did. I know everybody does, quite frankly. We all judge things. We're judging our physical appearance. We're very much judging how we feel. I shouldn't feel this. I shouldn't feel that. I should feel this. The shoulds will do you in every time. That's not true. You if you're following your shoulds, you cannot follow your authenticity. You cannot open to that. That's what I mean. You don't follow it. You are opening to it. In that, all of us can only do what we can do. I think I'm reasonably good at what I do. Okay? You're hearing some of what I do. God knows what my sessions are like because they're very specific according to the individual. I couldn't begin to describe them unless I'm talking about something specific. And I write. I try to learn everything about those things always. My field of learning is going to be open forever. Yours should be too. We should always learn more. And when we don't know, because there are some things that are literally outside what I do, and so outside I won't ever catch up even if I did learn about it, like, for example, technology. But I sure do know a wonderful person, my dear Jim Sadler, who can negotiate all that with me. And when I can't get something working, like I couldn't this morning, my darling husband is right here, and he comes down and he tinkers with things, and all of a sudden everything is up and working again. I'm very grateful that these people and other people are in my life that have their versions of expertise too, because I have mine. And we all help each other. Isn't that nice? And everybody helps everybody. This is the kind of world we're living in. But what if you are ashamed and never ask for help and ashamed of different aspects of yourself? Why? Look, we're all as smart as we can be, and we're also incredibly stupid. You find a subject that will tell you both about yourself, because you're whole. That's who you are. But don't deny these chunks and aspects of yourself, because you're denying energy that you need for now. We need to accept we're light and dark. But if you grew up feeling bad about yourself anyway, you don't want to do that. And you're going to have that resolved. And consciousness work certainly helps you resolve it and get past that. And for you to put your arms around everything. Guys, to die, to physically have a physical death, you're going to have to do that. Can't take it with you. You're going to have to not rely on the ego so you can leave the physical body. But you see, if you're relying on ego now, that it's going to save you, that it's going to protect you, then, guys, come on. That's why you linger at death's door, right? Come on, we can have a much better life right now. Right now. If you will start this process, and many of you are already in the middle of it, good for you, I say. Keep going. This is something that we've got to realize we'll never be finished with. How great can you be? Where does your potential end? There is no end unless you put a ceiling on it. Why would you? Keep going. And then I have people that say, oh, I've worked so hard. Super glue, right? On the back of the hand and pasted to the forehead. But guys, that's ego. It's just slowing you down. Don't be fooled. Keep going. Always keep going. Okay. And don't be afraid to ask for help. You see, a cognitive distortion construct is, I should know all this. Hence the should, right? I should do this myself. I should be able to do this myself. I should. Nobody can. I'm going to put it on the table right now. If you think you can, you hadn't reached the levels where you think, where you're going to have trouble. I always tease everybody when they first come into me, and I said, there's going to be a time that you're going to be real mad at me because I'm going to be working for you and you're going to be working against you, and we're going to be like this for a little while, but I'm not going to let you finish the session still being in that energy. And sure enough, that's what happens every time. I will fight you for you. That's really what it comes down to, huh? So we can get over these stuck points. Don't hesitate to seek help, guys. That doesn't mean anything about you. We all need help to get over sometimes these deeper things, these core things. I see a lot of people who've tried a lot of other methodologies, and they end up here, as I'm sure there are wonderful other people that they end up to, but I know the ones that end up here and we get through it. Just the way it is. If you don't go, the way your body is wired is, if you do not resolve all these little extraneous bits and pieces, if you do not go down to the deepest level of your being and know what is motivating you from that level, all the Band-Aids in the world are going to help you adjust, but the problem will still be there. You have to get rid of the problem energetically and the way you have put it all together. You have to pull down the system of which that's a part. You understand? Good. The next thing that Kristen says, Kristen Nikoff, is that resilient people enjoy spending time alone. Resilient people aren't afraid of getting to know their inner self. A part of them relishes this discovery process, and they tend to view reflection as a growth period, not stagnation. They enjoy learning without the distraction of others, without distraction from others, sorry. And that's very true. I read a lot about it during this period of self-isolation about what am I trying to say here? Extroverts and introverts. And certainly I know extroverts and introverts. Extroverts are people that get energy from other people. Introverts are people that get energy from being alone. I'm going to tell you, no matter what you are, you need to be both. And honor what you essentially are. I've had several of my friends who are introverts, as I am. Does that surprise you? Most everybody goes, "Dah." And the reason I can be out there, and the reason I make, 5 calls to friends and enjoy it thoroughly and have nice long conversations, and still do my work with people on the phone. And you see, I don't know whether you all know this about my work, but I'm changing the energy. Yes, I love talking with you. Yes, we can find the words to what I'm unhooking. But the fact is, I'm interested in changing your cellular energy and how it always goes this direction when it's in your best interest and the higher self to go in that direction. That's what I'm doing. So I can do it here. I can do it 6,000 miles away when you're in Europe. I can do it anywhere. Energy is what I'm working with. And energy does not require you to sit in a chair opposite me, you see? And how will you know it works? You'll start living differently in some way after a few sessions. That's what happens. Okay. I don't think this is necessarily about the introvert-extrovert thing. That's the reason I put that on the table. This whole period of time, the self-isolation, the difficulties with it. I think it is about whether you can be quiet within yourself or not. I think a great many people are having trouble with this. I remember a study that was done several years ago. I think you've heard me refer to it before. The study was, they had people just off the street or college campus, I think it was just off the street if I'm not mistaken, come into a lab, sit in a room that had nothing in it, absolutely nothing except a chair and a buzzer. And they told people that they needed to be in there for 15 minutes with their own thoughts. But if they got bored or couldn't stand it anymore, they could press the buzzer and it would shock them. The chair would shock them. And most people press the buzzer. You think that has a little significance right now to what you see out there in society? I think so too. More men than women press the button. All right. I think that men are very challenged right now about who they are. They have been for years, by the way. But I think many women don't go down there either. They rely on exterior things to keep them entertained. And certainly this period of time, if you were a great good God, is giving everybody an opportunity to reinvent, to rethink, to add deeper levels of value, to talk about real things. Heck, we can't even get our hair cut, right? Everything different. Different. Why not embrace it? Why not embrace, then, you? I can tell you for a fact, having done this work for a long time, that you have no idea what is down there in you. You haven't begun to tap it. What's down there is nothing bad. See, it's the ego child's mind that says, oh, don't go there. You'll find out you're a really bad person. Well, we're all bad people. So what? So what? We're all very good people, did it? Don't believe that. Propaganda coming from the ego child's mind, the part of you that thinks like a child. Don't believe that. For God's sake, we're everything. I say don't believe it. I should say just don't believe that you're anything but the bad thing. No, because we're everything. We're bad and good. We're everything. And now, embracing that, there's your energy to make your life better. I think that some of us who are comfortable with this deep experience of self, and by the way, the rest, I know I've been very active my whole life, very active. I've been busy. I continue to be busy. I like busyness. I think that many of us are resting, and I think that's good too. Boy, I think that's wonderful. Empty yourself. And the new ideas start coming, by the way. You know, ideas for my next book are already there because I just can't stand not thinking about something. However, I have to watch it because the next part of resilience that she has to say is this, and I'll tell you what I'm having to watch in just a minute. Resilient people value and build relationships. Resilient people value other people and see people first, not tasks first, not something else first. Even if you're busy and you have to go do something first, doesn't mean that you do not put people first. And if it was important, you would. You understand? You would demonstrate that. Everybody understands busyness. So. People that value and build relationships understand hierarchy and power, but they don't let a person's title determine the level of communication with them. Resilient people know relationships take time and effort and are willing to engage in the process. Now, she's got a lot of points here, many of which I'd like to cover. One of them, yes, you want to put people first. Relationships and people are the most important things in your lives, in your life. It's how we add value in the world, how we help each other. It's a give and take. Guys, I won't surprise you to say that relationships are all about an exchange of energy. Whether you are paying for somebody's time, like a therapist, like, you know, people pay me for my time, I make sure that I give more than I make sure that I give exactly the best of me during those 2 hours of a session. That's an exchange of energy because money's energy and what I do is energy. That's an exchange. Love is love for love, friendship for friendship, although sometimes friendships can require more than at other times. But a relationship is when something, energy, by the way, is exchanged. You don't have a relationship if there's no exchange of energy. So if you're not getting something back from someone, if they want something, 99% of the time, that isn't a relationship. So let's just go on and put that on the table right now. That's it. It's extremely important that nothing comes before relationships. Okay? They're very important. So you don't put anything first. You don't put your ego. You don't put the need to be right first. You don't put getting your tasks done first. You don't do that, right? I've known people that have gotten very ill in their time and they block everything else out. That's unfair. If you are ill, you're going to need to share that with somebody that you really love. It's not nice, is it? Not loving to exclude them, no matter how badly you feel. It's very important that you apologize if you are if you have been cruel or unkind. It's very important that you are authentic. She goes on to say they understand hierarchy and power, but they don't let a person's title determine the level of communication with them. I do agree with that. I just put it in different words because I deal with a lot of corporate people and people that are in businesses. And I want to say that how a company is structured is fine. But everybody is a human being in that organization, no matter who they are, and no matter what title they have, and no matter how much money they have. And it's really important for you as that CEO or as that person who's a clerk in the back office and anything in between, for you all to realize who you are, work from your sense of self, and realize on that level of our humanness, we're all the same. And we always will be. There is a spiritual aspect to all of us where everybody's the same, where everybody's just adding value as who they are. Human beings, the only ones I know that mess that up a little bit with their egos, right? An ego child's mind, I should say. But in my opinion, everything in the world doesn't have a hierarchy. The pebble in the yard is being the best pebble it can be. The sand on the shore, one grain, is being the best sand it can be. The tree is being the best tree it can be, according to itself, according to its place in the world, according to the energy of God, not according to your brain judging. So you got to get your brain out of the way judging you. You've just got to be who you are in this moment, the best you can be. Why isn't that all right? Well, the answer is, it always is. Yeah. We judge our activities, we judge our actions, we judge our thoughts. Why? Why not just say, well, that was a human thought going by, wasn't it? Maybe I should look at that again and work on it and see what that's motivated by and help myself do something else. That's the spiritual way. The consciousness journey is not judgment of self or anybody else. It's just going down there and looking at what you're doing and what's motivating you, resolving that, doing something different on the surface. That's all. If you change the energy, you change the behavior, you change the thought, you change everything. The energy is where the power is, guys. The power to change. Now, many people are afraid of change, though, aren't they? Scared. Oh! That's an ego child's issue if I've ever heard it. Because let me tell you, change is the energy of God. Change. God is an infinite and ever-expanding set of truths, always in motion. Going down, going down, going down, learning something else, doing something else, reinventing. Power. That's the power of the individual and the power of consciousness and the power of potential. Next one. Oh, have I finished that one? Yeah, I think so. So let's move on. Her next point is that resilient people develop multiple plans. She goes on to say, I should put on my glasses for this. Resilient people understand that multiple variables can impact their goals, so they develop a handful of contingency plans, and they will often have more than one optimal plan in place. This allows them to shift and pivot faster than most people and still obtain exceptional results. Oh, I think this is so true. I agree with this thought totally. You can't just spend $1 and say, my money is coming through the lottery. Guys, come on. You know, we have to have plans in place. One of my clients spoke with a woman that I know to be, she has strong bipolar leanings. And she's not a client at all, but we know her together. And they had dinner together, and she said that this other woman was full of all the things that she was going to do. And she said, so what's your plan? Tell me how this is going to happen in this one aspect. And there was no plan at all. So she immediately went off and tried to distract herself and my client. And she saw it very clearly. You have to have plans, realistic plans. You can't be in fantasy. And not only do you have to have a plan, you have to have several plans. You have to be able to pivot. I think that's a wonderful word for resilience and adaptability, don't you? I love that word. You know, it's like pivot. Pivot. Many things about you already pivot. That first cervical vertebra moves your head. It pivots. You can pivot on your legs, right? That's what cross training is, it's pivoting. But a lot of us are stuck emotionally and cannot pivot. Fixation. The energy is stuck. You got to unstick it. One of the things that I notice about everyone who does consciousness work is they are better at resilience and adaptability. I've been so proud of my clients, I don't know what to do. Everybody's handling this so much better than society in general. It's unbelievable. I would expect that, but you never know, honestly, what to expect when something like this happens out of the blue. I've been very proud of everybody. Enormously. What in the world? I keep seeing things float by. Did you see that? Something floated by. I think I've got feathers in the house. I have an old feather comforter that my dog has been digging in because he has his balls. He loves something to be under the comforter so he can dig, 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 dig. And I think he's broken several places, so now feathers are everywhere. It looks like it's snowing in my house. I'm sorry about that. Feathers are going by. Just the way it is. Okay. Human. All right. You have to, and I want to say this, developing multiple plans will work for you if you don't do it from your brain, if you stay in that area of openness. I mean, I'm not somebody that will have several plans necessarily in place on paper. I don't think them through. The truth is, until a certain thing happens in life, I don't know which way to pivot. Hi, Mark. Oh, aren't you sweet? Thank you, dear heart, for saying so. And here I am over here going, you know, you hate to say, oh my God, my hair, when people are dying out there, you know, it's horrible. But you do, I do say as a human being, oh my God, my hair. But thank you so much, Mark, for saying that. Very sweet. I hope you're doing well. So, going back to the point that I was making beyond all that silliness. So I don't have plans that I pre-think and pre-order from my brain, because I don't know how this is going to look out there. And everything is moving. There are lots of moving parts. So I want to say, in consciousness, the best thing you can do is be open to pivot in various directions. You can think about it, and you can have it kind of floating around in your consciousness. But I think pre-deciding every little thing, honestly, makes you less resilient when things change out there than you're just being open and listening and being inspired by God in that moment to go that way. If there's one thing that I have seen in this energy that I'm talking about that really will support you, it's that God keeps you on the cutting edge of change. It's as if you are surfing on that, right in that edge on a big wave. It's certainly disconcerting to be up there when you first start. But then you start living there. And you just know that if you're not told anything, to proceed as usual, and when you are told, you better move. And you do. And that's when it is proven to you that you're fine. So I urge you, in spite of what she's saying here, to not pre-plan everything with your brain to the extent that inspiration and what's happening in the moment and that kind of information that comes to you from God is blocked. You know, if we're really trying to make things work out of our brain, that will block the energies a lot of times. So I wanted to put that on the table. Mark says, I take away that intelligent people tend to make plans but leave a margin of freedom. You know, Mark, I think that's wonderful. You have just said it better than I, so thank you. Yes, we have that openness. It's you know, the freedom to listen to what God says in the moment, you know, divine inspiration, anything else. Okay, her next point, Kristen Meekoff, said that resilient people practice self-care. And that's true. She goes on to say they know that they're not immune to challenges, so they make daily efforts to take care of their physical and emotional well-being. This may mean going to bed at a certain time or avoiding certain foods or having to take a daily meditation practice. Self-care practices are integrated into their routine. And I think that's true. You know, with anything, you can over-focus on that or you can under-focus on that. So I think it's really important for us to have a routine and have our what makes us feel good. I think that sometimes we over or under concentrate on that physically and we don't do that emotionally. Again, the emotional body is very subtle, guys. And there's a lot of misinformation there. Again, the ego child's mind sending up propaganda all the time saying, don't do that, do that, no, you should do this. And it's, you know, we use those shoulds like a whip. You got to know the difference, I think, between the ego child's mind and the propaganda it sends up and what's really true. You know, I'm going to say again the difference. Ego child's mind is fear-based. It's very self-involved, myopic. The ego child's mind has two elements. It's expansive, you know, how marvelous we are, or it's contractive, how like the bottom of a dirty bird cage we are. If you have one, you're going to have the other, because we are just who we are. And that's in the middle. We're just who we are. I think it's extremely important to our emotional well-being beyond what we were taught in the 50s of going to a psychiatrist. Now I think psychiatrists are real important. There are several people I work with. But the stigma of that, we are beyond that, ladies and gentlemen. We are in the era of consciousness. And what we do now is really important. This is about knowing as much about yourself as possible, drilling down to who you are, being resilient, adaptable, and adding value and contribution from that area of our being. Um, I think that the frontier that we're at right now is the frontier of consciousness. I think every person on the planet is being called to a deeper level of self. And to be arguing about that for years and years and years and years to come. This doesn't have to do with groups of people or cultures around the world. What's on the table right now is it has to do with you. Are you going to start this journey or continue this journey into deeper levels of consciousness and not stop? Are you going to add value in the world, and not only through your talents, gifts, and abilities and contributions, but between the collective consciousness of adding that energy to the world, just living? I think we're there. I wrote about that, and I think I even quoted that first page of my book, The Life You Want. You can get that through my website. This is the age of individual consciousness, and what we do right now is going to determine everything for your own life and for the life of the planet. I urge you to practice that kind of self-care, because the tricky thing here is not the physical body. That's the obvious thing, and that needs to be taken care of. But the tricky thing is the emotional body, because you've got a lot of conflicting things. And the spiritual body needs to be shored up. What do you really believe beyond what you think you believe right now? What do you really know about yourself beyond what you know about right now? Much to know. Much to know. Our next point is resilient people, and I love this one. This is my favorite point. Resilient people know everything is energy. And as such, she goes on to say, resilient people know that saying yes to every request will lead to exhausting their energy. They know how to conserve their resources and use them appropriately. Okay, she's thinking of energy quite differently than I do. But what she's saying is absolutely true. You must preserve your energy and pace yourself and all that lovely stuff that we learn to do on the road to consciousness. But what I like is resilient people know everything is energy. One of the things that I have taught in my classes is that everything is energy. Your behavior is energy. The thought you think, energy. The feeling you have, energy. Everything is energy. Change the energy if you want to change those things. Change the energy. How do you change the energy? You have to find out what you're doing, and you have to find out why you're doing it, and there are going to be multiple reasons. Let me put this on the table. This might explain it. So the ego child's mind thinks it has a system whereby you're going to be safe forever. Everybody knows it's limiting, it's all about you, it's, all the other adjectives, fear-based. Okay. So it's smart, this ego child's mind. It wants to survive. So what it does is it takes an issue like, let's say this nugget is that you never know enough about anything. You never know enough, okay? Well, it takes that energy that you never know enough, and it's as if it takes a shotgun to it, because how would you disguise that? You see, if it was this little nugget, I don't know enough, I could go for it and move it out right away, right? Couldn't I? Yeah. If you work with energy, you move it out right away. Can't do that. Because what the ego child's mind has done is it's taken a shotgun to that nugget. The shotgun has blasted it into tiny little bits, and these little bits have been hidden in other things. So all of a sudden, this, whoops, okay, I don't think I've lost you. This tiny little thing that is, I need to know more, is now in this little piece up here that says, I'm never enough. And this one that says, I'm always wrong. And this one that said, I don't think my dad loved me because I wasn't smart enough. I never lived up to his expectations. Here's another one. I'm a disappointment to myself and to my dad. And you got a whole bunch of those. And until a great healer finds all of those, this is never going to be gone. Now, that's the challenge of the work that I do. I'm interested in finding all those pieces and breaking those down, resolving all of those, so this big issue goes away. The only way you get to a big issue like that is to find the little pieces that your specific ego child's mind has created and hidden all around the psyche. I hope that explains things. But that's why my sessions are 2 hours long, because I'm interested in finding those elements and getting rid of that part today. And eventually breaking down whatever that big old nugget is. Everything is energy. Everything is energy. And we're all better people, better healers. We're better functioning in the world. We're better wives and husbands and mothers and fathers and God knows what else, daughters and sons, sisters and brothers, if we realize everything is energy. It's really not personal. What is the energy doing? What are my motivations? What's going on? What are somebody else's motivations without mind reading? Because you have a sense of knowing what they are because you're doing it. This is where the emphasis is. Isn't it irony that I'm saying, let's get beyond our ego child's mind, and yet I'm saying, look at it in this aspect as well. Isn't that duality? You say? Of course it is. All right, she goes on to say that resilient people are sensitive. What is my time like? Oh my God, 12 minutes. All right, let's get as much of this done as possible, and we'll be back next week. I guess I won't be talking about creativity next week until I can finish this. Or maybe I'll bleed it in. Resilient people are sensitive is her next point. This doesn't mean resilient people wake up crying. Instead, they feel things at a deep, very human level. They are often moved to innovate something or mentor someone based on heartfelt emotions. They understand sensitivity as one of the basic human qualities. Yes, I think that is true. I see people from time to time who describe themselves as overly sensitive, and there's no such thing. The motivation for that lie in the cognitive distortions that you've heard me lecture on. People that personalize too much or mind read other people, and look at that whole list. There are many of them that will feed into this description of yourself as overly sensitive. I think it's important for all of us to be compassionate and sensitive to the whole world. That does not mean that we are investing in it, marrying it, going deeply into it. We simply must relate as another human being. I think that consciousness causes us to relate with all of life, not just other human beings. This does not mean we have to love everybody. I think we do love everybody, but there's some very toxic people in the world, and they're over there. I'm not going to invite them to my table. And neither should you. But Who are you? Now, we've talked about the two levels of us, the ego child's mind that's fear-based and the higher self that's love-based. Both of them are you. We have to embrace both of them, and then only then you have a choice to be your more loving self. But love can look a lot of different ways. You can love someone from afar sometimes better than you can love them in your own home. Your job is just to love them. Your job is to do it whatever way you need to do it. Why is your job to love them? Because they have exhibited some sort of something that makes them lovable? Absolutely not. It's because you, my dear, are love. As your highest self, that's who you are. As your ego child's mind, that's who you are. But you have taken that love and distorted it in all sorts of ways. In our child's mind, love is fear, love is rage, love is all sorts of things. You think that's not love? It certainly is. It's love that couldn't be itself. You learned you couldn't have love as that sweet, vulnerable, kind, sensitive person. So you've done other things with it. You've stored it in rage. You've stored it in fear. You've stored it. Well, this is what consciousness work does, doesn't it? It releases all that so that the energy can now change back into what it is. And that's why everybody who does consciousness studies becomes something different, becomes more loving, but becomes someone who loves in an emotionally mature way. I say this is an age of individual consciousness, and that means individual responsibility too. We had an incident, we've had two, as a matter of fact, in the parking lot of our grocery store. And you may have a different opinion about this. We live out in the country, and I went to the grocery store the other day, and there were cars and police cars and everything in this grocery store parking lot. And I said, what in the world went on? I found out later when I went inside. I met a friend of mine there, social distancing, of course, with our little face masks on. And she said that there was an old man that saw a group of kids who were not social distancing. They were in a little cluster. So he took it upon himself to go over there and absolutely reamed them and read them the riot act, and I think offended everybody, of course. And one of the young men said that he was very upset for this man insulting him and his friends so that he punched him in the nose. When there were so many things wrong with it to me. You know, I'm not going to go over and lecture anybody. If I'm going to take my precautions, for God's sake, take your precautions. Look to you. Don't lecture somebody else. I do feel like that's crossing the line. I do think that this young man should certainly be prosecuted for punching somebody in the nose. But I think originally he shouldn't have stepped over that line. Now, you may have a difference of opinion, and if you have a difference of opinion, I think we must agree to disagree. And that's just fine. I like that. I just feel, the only reason I'm telling you this story is I feel that this is really about individual consciousness. This is about individuals doing the work on themselves. This is about coming to grips with a different world, with the resilience of spirit, where we realize everybody has a right to live and die the way they choose, by the way. And we must do what we think is right. I think going out and blessing somebody else out is very unloving. I think it's all ego. I think it's based on somebody being right and somebody being wrong. And I don't believe that that was well motivated. I probably wouldn't have said anything to anybody. As a matter of fact, I saw, as I was driving out of the parking lot, another group of young people standing over there too close together. It would never occur to me to go over and say anything to you. But if I did go over and say something, it would have been in a much more loving way. I say again, it isn't, you don't move, you don't love, you don't reach out, you don't do things for any reason in the higher self other than you are love. If I can love someone who's very toxic better, I'm going to move them away from me so I can love them, because I have to preserve the love that I am. It isn't about whether they are lovable. It's about who you are and nothing else. All right. Her next point is resilient people create and make space for innovation. We're going to be doing a radio show in a week or two about creativity. She goes on to say resilient people are often creating things they're not even aware of, that you're not even aware of as a general public or will ever see. They may write a song or journal entry or paint a canvas just for their own enjoyment. Many innovative ideas come by way of engaging in another creative activity. I think creativity is a marvelous way for us to get beyond our issues and know ourselves. I used to have actors that were in my acting classes that would come to me and say, oh my God, I've been in therapy for 30 years and this is better than any therapy. This one session has been better than any therapy I've ever done. Yeah, because it's challenging you to do many of the things we're talking about in these classes. Being real, improving in the moment, really connecting energetically, etc., 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 etc. Many, many other things. Guys, we have 3 minutes left. Oh, there's a call, and I didn't even see this call. Sorry about that. Let's see. I'm not sure they're still there because there's no hold time. Because we only have 2 minutes left, I'm going to apologize to you, 262, and say, please call back next week, and I'll be glad to answer your questions. We'll continue this discussion next week, guys, and try to make our way to creativity too after we talk a little more about authenticity. Guys, I'm very pleased that you all like the show. Thank you. Thank you very much for doing that. I ask that you get the word around about the show on social media, through your friends, anything like that. It means a lot. We're building certainly a base here that we can serve, and that means a lot. But you all are the key to this. And I want to thank you for what you're doing every week. Every week I get notices about it. It means a lot. We thank you so much, dear God, for all of this and for what we are doing right now in the way of opening ourselves to being more loving, more conscious people. We thank you so much for helping us either today or in the next few days open to what the next step or two 90 seconds is for us. And we ask now that some of these deeper levels of resistance and adaptability take their place within us, because it is the door to our creativity and what we do next in the world. We know our fulfillment lies in adding value, in our authenticity, in who we are, and that what we do comes out of it. Open us to 60 seconds. Open us to that, dear God, as we are real and dedicated to being that and adding potential. Not because our ego wants to be anything, but because it comes out of who we really are as love. Thank you so much, dear God, and we say this prayer in your name, in the name of all the ascended masters, our love-centered guides and friends, and in the name of everybody listening to the show. And thank you for those sweet hearts that you just sent me. You guys, I love you very much, and we will be back next week. I apologize to 262. Please call back next week. I'd love to talk with you. Okay? Have a great week. Stay safe. Stay well.
10 seconds.
10 seconds, guys. Do work on yourself. Love you.